software company, Hyperion, and for a service firm with Emtec, totally around the enterprise performance management solution that Oracle has to offer, essentially the Hyperion product suite. And my goal here today is to make sure with our guest presenter that you have a great understanding of what is involved in making the transition from Hyperion Enterprise to Hyperion Financial Management. So as far as an agenda today, what we're going to follow is I'm briefly going to take you through a little bit about Emtec, what we do as a firm, taking it from a higher level down to the actual EPM, Enterprise Performance Management practice. Once I've gone through that, I will turn it over to our guest speaker, who I'll mention is Russ Rogers, who is our Consolidations and Reporting Practice Director, and I'll give you a little bit more background on Russ in a little bit. And then Russ will take you through the rest of the presentation, talking a little bit about Hyperion Enterprise in terms of its genealogy, where it started at, where we're at, and where it's going to wind up at. Then begin talking about what HFM is, making sure you have a better understanding of exactly what Hyperion Financial Management is. Get into the comparison of Hyperion Enterprise to Hyperion Financial Management. And with that said, then the next thing is pretty straightforward in terms of, as Enterprise kind of goes off on a sunset path, what are the considerations that you need to take into consideration when you're migrating from Enterprise to HFM, and then ultimately presenting to you a program that we have to assist with that migration process. We'll open it up to questions. In terms of questions, as Erica mentioned up front, there is a chat section on the screen, so if you would be so kind as to type in your question, and we will make sure that we answer them at the end of the session. So with that said, let's start out with who Emtec is. Emtec is a firm that has been around for actually 46 years, working in many different aspects of the development arena, in both working for IT development, strategy, things of that nature. For those of you who are not familiar with Emtec, you may be familiar with the Emerging Solutions. Well, Emtec was a merger of Emerging Solutions and Emtec, naturally. So from that perspective, if you're unsure of Emtec, if you're familiar with Emerging Solutions being a long-time player in the Hyperion arena, so rest assured there's a tremendous amount of experience around Hyperion. But Emtec, with the merger, makes Emtec and us a much bigger firm with a much bigger reach, with a tremendous amount of resources, with years and years of experience, to really assist you not just in Hyperion applications, but really across the entire enterprise when it comes to information technology and other type of aspects. So with that said, let's drill down a little bit more on Emtec and give you a little flavor for what are some of the pillars that Emtec has to offer. So Emtec covers 5 major pillars. And the 5 major pillars are consulting services, again, as I mentioned earlier, focused on IT strategy and planning, process improvement, performance and governance, and so on down that list. With the acquisition of Emerging Solutions, Emtec now has a practice around the entire Oracle stack. And what we cover in the packaged services area is, again, everything Oracle, related to Oracle, relating to ERP, with Fusion, EBS, PeopleSoft, everything Hyperion and business intelligence focused, as well as other practices within the packaged services arena, as you see on screen. The other pillars that Emtec offers, that we offer, are specific capabilities relating to cloud technologies, application development and managed services, as well as infrastructure services. And infrastructure services in today's environment is an absolutely huge component of any type of technology software implementation. So let's drill down a little bit further and talk specifically about the enterprise performance management practice of Emtec, formerly the Emerging Solutions organization. So our practice, which Russ is a part of and I am a part of, we are a practice that focuses across the entire enterprise performance management stack, if you wish. So we focus everything around financial consolidation, all the components and modules of financial consolidation, all the modules and components of budget planning and forecasting, a deep focus on S-Base and being able to create applications specific to your organization's requirements that typically may not fit within financial consolidation or budget planning and forecasting, and of course business intelligence. And with those 4 pillars, we cover the entire spectrum of anything relating to all of the reporting and analysis requirements that your organization may have, and again, as I mentioned earlier, specifically to infrastructure services. These applications are no longer taking a DVD and put it on a drive. These implementations, these are enterprise-wide applications, and the installation of the software requires a focus on infrastructure services, right-sizing the hardware, making sure that there's enough space and technology to ensure that you have the right hardware in place. With that said, one of the things that's really important to keep in mind as you're going through any type of implementation, redesign, installation, is the type of partner that you're working with. Emtec is an Oracle Platinum partner. That is one of the highest levels of partnership you can get within Oracle. In order to achieve that status, you need to meet certain criteria. You need to have 5 certifications or specializations with that. Our firm has certifications or specializations across the entire Hyperion spectrum, be it Hyperion Planning, Hyperion Financial Management, and S-Base. That means a certain percentage of our staff has to be certified in each of those applications or each of those pillars as it relates to sales, pre-sales, support, and implementation. And you need to have a certain amount of training for your individuals on a yearly basis and referenceable clients. And Oracle does check on that. If you do not meet that criteria, you do not get that certification. We're proud to say that we have the certification in all of the Hyperion pillar set, with over 80+% of our consultants certified with that. So with that, let's move a little bit further and actually get into the Hyperion Enterprise to Hyperion Financial Management movement. And what I'd like to do is now introduce our guest speaker, who is Russ Rogers. Russ is our National Practice Director for Hyperion Financial Management Delivery. Russ has, similar to me, 20+ years, so we have a lot of expertise and knowledge about the Hyperion applications and how they affect the management processes relating to consolidation, budget planning, reporting, analysis. So with that said, I'll turn this over to Russ. Russ?
Well, thank you very much, Lynn. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today and give you a little bit of an idea about my background. I started out as an accountant for the Coleman Company in Wichita, Kansas, wow, almost 25, 30 years ago now. And I had the unique opportunity to join a project team to implement something called microcontrol, and a little while later I crossed over to the dark side and went into software and worked at Hyperion for a number of years, and then went out on my own in consulting for a little while, started my own firm, sold it to a larger firm, joined Emtec about a year and a half, almost a year ago, I guess. And what my role is within Emtec is to not just control all of the implementations of consolidation and reporting, that is Hyperion HFM as well as Enterprise. controlling the methodology, making sure that we have good client services, all of that reports up to me. But I'm also a hands-on consultant. I love to get my hands dirty as often as I can and as often as my team lets me. And I lead a really great team that makes my job a lot easier of consultants that has kind of similar to me. They all started out as accountants and consultants and got into software, and between us we have over 600 implementations of projects. We have over almost 200 HFM implementations between us. So within our team we have HFM, FDM, planning, S-Base, and then we also rely on the greater Emtec team to make sure that we're servicing clients well. My background, it started off with microcontrol and then enterprise and then HFM. And, the end of an era with Hyperion Enterprises, I've always taken that kind of personally, but that's how people talk. And really HFM is a continuation of enterprise, but it started with microcontrol back in '82, and I actually had the unique experience of seeing something called Hyperion 1.0 back in 1990, and it was a really interesting take on what became enterprise. But enterprise was actually the first software that I worked at when I started working for IMRS in '92, and it was new, and it was kind of a quantum leap because it used a new technology called Windows, and as we've gone through the years, things have changed a lot, and enterprise has changed a lot all the way up to the final version, which is 6.5.1. But all good things come to an end, and about halfway through that cycle, they developed something called HFM, and I remember sitting in the original development meetings about this web-based architecture that was just coming to fore, and we were really addressing a lot of the issues that we saw with what was holding enterprise back, and luckily that became HFM. And HFM kind of merged with all of the other technologies that Hyperion had, and especially when Oracle acquired Hyperion, to come up with something called Epm. And it really is a platform that allows you to, with HFM as a part of it, really share all of your information and technology across the organization. The current version of HFM that we recommend installing is 11.1.2.2, and you'll hear us refer to it a lot as 2.2, and it's the current version, and it really represents about 30 years of development within the consolidation and reporting space. I did about 190 enterprise implementations. The last one was about 2.5 years ago. We finished it up. And within these enterprise implementations, it was always kind of the same thing. We had ledger sources, that is, extracts from our ledgers, and they were formatted a certain way. And you brought them in to enterprise one of 3 ways. One is you just natively loaded them if you were lucky enough that everything matched up. Or you use something called LedgerLink. And LedgerLink was kind of one of the things about enterprise that you'll notice in this discussion is there's lots of bolt-on modules. And those bolt-on modules have come about through just clients asking for things. And LedgerLink was one of those things. It was originally developed by a consultant, and they made it a product, and it was kind of functional for taking simply formatted materials and putting it into HFM. But it really didn't, enterprise, but it really didn't have audit capability and mapping, sophisticated ETL capability. There was a product called Upstream that started up back in the 90s, and it became what's now known as FDQM when Hyperion acquired the company. And there are a lot of implementations of Hyperion Enterprise with FDQM. Other external data sources came in a number of different ways. Schedules. Schedules are just formatted reports that allow you to enter data. Hyperion Retrieve has functionality called HP Link, and that's very widely used to pipe information into Enterprise. There's also within Enterprise itself the capability to do journal entries, and there's this thing called the Journals module. Now, of my clients, probably 20% use the Journals module. It was kind of the, boy, we really don't like it, so we don't use it kind of thing. And that kind of gave rise to a lot of issues where it came to change management and compliance and how you adjusted information within Enterprise. And of course, we have our old friend, our logic files. At some point, they changed the name to formulas. And those formulas kind of controlled all of the calculations, all of the translations. I was looking at an Enterprise application kind of going down memory lane that I built back in 96, and at one point it had 250 logic files that were interactive across the organization. And, you know, the main purpose of Enterprise was to consolidate. And in terms of consolidations, it was kind of cutting edge in terms of how it did eliminations, the fact that it allowed you to do journal entries, the fact that it allowed you to interact with your data in a really significant way that made client-server kind of in the mid-90s, client-server was the panacea for handling financial information. And of course, we have, when we look at outputs, there's kind of three ways of doing things. And again, you'll notice kind of the bolt-on approach of things that Hyperion Reporting, originally you just had text files that you manually edited, and then they came up with Hyperion Reporting, and reporting allowed you to do production reports and books, and it had a lot of functionality that allowed you to read the metadata within Enterprise and do production reporting prompts, things like that. You, of course, had Hyperion Retrieve, and Hyperion Retrieve is a great way of sharing information between Enterprise and Excel. And then you had a separate thing called Hyperion Analyst, which kind of allowed you to do a level of ad hoc analysis. Now, when we look at going forward, of course, we know that Hyperion's ending support for Enterprise. I think the final date has kind of shifted here and there, but I think it's safe to say by May 1st we'll be on our own when it comes to Enterprise. And a lot of the conversations that I've had with our client base about upgrading from Enterprise is, well, what happens if I do nothing? And kind of the key is, you know, the software will continue to run as long as you don't change anything. And we all know that that doesn't happen very often. But when you talk about specifically what are the issues you're going to continue to experience, a lot of it comes down to each of these modules has interactions, and because they're each in a silo, you're going to have to address how they interact with your platform. If your IT group has a tendency to push out updates without talking to you, you may wake up one day and Enterprise just doesn't work anymore, or LedgerLink doesn't work, or your version of Upstream that has the correct connectors doesn't work anymore. That's kind of a doomsday scenario, but we all know that you'll be able to work around that, but it's going to take you time and effort to work around that. And so because it's fat client architecture, you're going to run into a lot more of that than you normally would. Now, we all talk about, you know, those key issues. It's unsupported by the software vendor. You're going to see platform support issues, escalating support costs, and there's always the compliance issues that says, okay, what's our disaster recovery plan? And that becomes difficult as well. Key issues that you're going to encounter when you talk about migrating to HFM is, first of all, the cost of entry. There's a lot of licensing changes when it comes to the way you use HFM versus the way you used Enterprise. And in the good old days of IMRS and Hyperion, licensing was sort of a whatever the salesman could basically get through. I hate to say it that way, but it was part of what I kind of liked about working at Hyperion. You made deals with clients. Now, from a user audit perspective, I think as you look at different levels of users, what you really want to do is take a look at what users you have and information. I think when we talk about the different environments and the different things that you're going to be doing, it's easy for us to kind of forget that there's a lot of people that interact with the data. So maintaining those user audits is really important. Hardware and in the environment, Enterprise was kind of the good old days. You had the ability to just sit on a file server somewhere within your environment. As you got more and more individuals using it, maybe you implemented some Citrix in there somewhere, some remote desktop use to get people into it, even sites. Kind of understanding that ownership is going to switch a little bit to IT. Who is actually going to own the environment? It generally happens within an IT environment within HFM. Of course, you have considerations like external hosting, on-demand services provided by Oracle, and managed services, for example, what we provide at Emtec in terms of maintaining your environment, providing technical capabilities. Solution build costs are always an issue. What's the scope of your implementation? Are you looking to make minimal changes as you move forward, or do you want to take advantage of some of the platform benefits that we'll talk about here in a few minutes? What kind of resources do you have to lend to the project? I think we all know that we have a tendency to be a little bit resource constrained within organizations, and how do you look at the internal versus external resource costs? And then, of course, your time frames. Again, scope. How much are you trying to do? Are you trying to crawl before you walk, before you run, or do you need to do it organizationally as quickly and as efficiently as possible? And part and parcel of that is, especially with a software like Oracle, how much data do you have and how much data do you want to bring over to your new environment? And we can talk about some of those considerations. I really don't want to turn this into too much of an advertisement for HFM, but it is, in my opinion, the premier software for doing consolidations and reporting within just about any arena. I don't want to go through it just point by point, but key to all of this is that it's a singular platform that has a few moving parts to it, but each of those moving parts are engineered to work together. So you really don't have that bolt-on feel that you had with Enterprise. You knew when you were going to the report writer. You knew when you were going to the security module, for example. It opened up a new window and things like that. But within HFM, all of those pieces kind of work as a single platform to make sure that you have access and make sure that you have capability. And all of it's done in a very thin client base. What you'll also notice with HFM is a lot of the concepts that you dealt with within Enterprise that you had to tell Enterprise how to do it, they happen automatically within HFM. Things like foreign currency translation, adjustments, custom calculations, process management. Of course, every implementation that we do with HFM, we use FDQM. And really it provides us the level of controllability of our data, okay? It is web-based, it's thin client, it's very easy to set up and use, and it gives you out-of-the-box connectivity to HFM from an ETL standpoint. It also, and one of the things that we preach a lot to our clients, is that it gives you the ability to do drill-through from HFM into the actual files that were loaded so that you can see any kind of original data that you'd like. Shared services is a security capability that allows single-point user management, access, control, and security across all Hyperion platforms. Single user sign-on support from Active Directory providers. It provides user reporting and logging. And one of the key benefits to it is it's actually maintainable, and it's usable, and it's auditable. And it has reports in it that you just didn't have when you had Hyperion Enterprise. When somebody would ask me to print out a security report, I'd just kind of cringe and say, okay, what would you like to know? Within shared services, that's done very efficiently. You actually can use external authentication, something that was always extremely difficult to use with Enterprise. Financial Reporting Studio is the common reporting platform for production reporting. It is object-based. It allows you to access all Hyperion products. For example, at KCP&L, where we're doing a project, they have Hyperion Planning, Hyperion Essbase, and HFM all running together. And we have reports that access all three simultaneously, kind of transparently to the user in terms of where the data is sitting. So we can combine consolidations data, external reporting data, planning data, and internal analysis or operational data all in the same report. And all of that is available throughout the system. And then, of course, SmartView for Office is kind of the next generation of Retrieve. And I say next generation because it combines both the ad hoc reporting that you had some ability to do with an analyst, as well as the formula-based reporting that you had the ability to do within Retrieve, into one singular, very, very thin client package. It supports all Office products, so you no longer have to do links and things like that to PowerPoint presentations. And it also provides a portal to access task flows within HFM. Whenever we look at, of course, there's nothing common when you talk about consolidation systems. Everybody's a little bit different. Everybody does things just a little bit their own way. But generally what we look at is we have three things that are going on. One is how are we getting the data into the application, that is FDQM. FDQM is the only Hyperion product that doesn't have a three-letter acronym, so a lot of people call it FDM. And, you know, it's in charge of all of the data transformation, all of the mapping, what constitutes from your code block key into an entity, into a scenario, into the different pieces of HFM. It gives you validation capabilities, the ability to report, and the ability to audit changes that are made to mapping. So it really is a control level that we provide. You know, the whole crux of consolidation systems is to be able to control data from transaction system where you're sourcing the data all the way to the end report. And FDQM is a huge piece of that because it allows us the ability to control what data flows into HFM. Within the HFM workspace, it's where you run tasks, things like consolidations, things like data management, task flow automation streams, things like that. It's where you maintain the application, whether you're using a classic application within HFM, which is more manual, or EPMA, the performance management architect, to deploy applications in an automated way. It also gives you the ability to do process management. So within an enterprise, there's no real capability to say this data has been approved, this data can be used by other individuals. There really wasn't any way, other than looking at a consolidation status and seeing whether something was locked or not, to know how data was progressing through the organization. Built into HFM is the ability to do up to 10 levels of process management that gives you the ability to control that information and control who signs off on it and who can make changes after certain points. Now, we also have SmartView for Office, which of course gives us the ability to do Excel-based formula reporting. Just like you did an HP Val within Enterprise, you can do an HS Get within SmartView and just pull in the data pieces, and of course that gives you the flexibility of Enterprise. Also built into that is a lot of the ad hoc analysis that we used to use canned reports for in Enterprise. It's very flexible. It's easy to use. You can drill down on any of the dimensions, and you can also do journals reporting, so that if you use the journals module to make adjustments within HFM, you can actually report those within Excel, and that makes a lot of the reconciliation sheets that you do much, much easier and much more automatic, if you will. Now, a lot of my clients also look at SmartView as a way of pumping supplemental data into HFM, and that supplemental data, can be everything from cash flow information, headcount, budget, things like that. And then you have the Epm Workspace, and that's really the portal that allows you not just to see what applications you have access very easily. It also allows you to access multiple applications at the same time. If you have S-Base and planning, you can go seamlessly from one application to another. It also allows you to have a portal for other information, links to other sites, internal sites, different reports. You can format the types of reports people see automatically, and you can run them directly from Workspace. Now, Hyperion Financial Management is, a lot of people say it's the big brother to HFM, and I guess in some ways it is. In Enterprise, you had three dimensions. You had entity, account, and category, and within each of those three dimensions, you had some options, sub-entities, sub-accounts. But it was really limited because it kind of tried to bundle all of the stuff that you do from a point of view perspective into three places. And within HFM, that's split out into at least 10 dimensions, usually 12 plus dimensions, and I'll explain that here in a second. The entity is the basic building block, though. It does give you a lot of flexibility when you look at the fact of how you build the entity structure within Enterprise is kind of rolling everything all into one, right? And within HFM, we're giving you the flexibility to purpose build it for only what you need. You have scenario. Scenario is akin to category, but unlike category, which had only a single year view, scenarios are now multi-year, and they also have a lot more flexibility in terms of how you chain them together. Accounts within Enterprise, it was really the basic concept of a universal chart of accounts still applies. But now within the account dimension, we're splitting out each of those and giving you a multi-dimensional view that allows you to have account and intercompany separated as dimensions. It also allows you to use a number of custom dimensions. In prior versions of HFM, this was limited to 4. With this version, where we expand that based upon the database that you're using. And those custom dimensions really allow you to add a lot of detail. It allows you to do much, much more when you think about the multi-dimensional hierarchies that we can build within HFM and how we use those to construct your reporting views. It is database dependent how many custom dimensions you can have. With Oracle, I believe the limit is 5. SQL Server is 8. DB2, I think, is up to 99 or something like that. But it really allows you to use more detail within your reporting structure and relying less and less on spreadsheet calculations. cash flow actually becomes quite automated within HFM. Of course, you have view, month-to-date, quarter-to-date, year-to-date, and kind of any kind of combination that you'd like to build within HFM. The periodicity within HFM is definable. You're not limited to static definitions of how things occur. New within HFM, though, is an application of something called the value dimension. And that value dimension takes on some of the characteristics that we shoehorned into entities within an enterprise. And that is eliminations, contribution, proportion, the kind of roll-up information that you had. Currency is also contained within this dimension, so you're not having to shoehorn it into the entity dimension, and we'll talk about that here in a second. And then, of course, year and period. Within HFM, and when I talk about how we work with clients to transform enterprise and do a migration into HFM, probably the biggest thing that we work on is the entity dimension. And within enterprise, we had a pretty standard way of implementing it. You had entities, and those entities had sub-entities. And you went through local currency input, local currency adjustment, rolling up to total, and then that total got translated. You added in your U.S. dollars, and that was the total. And it could be a ragged organization, but then you also had to include anywhere where you wanted to do an adjustment. So that local currency adjustment, that U.S. dollar adjustment, that area adjustment, you had to add those entities in because you could either load to an entity or you could post a journal to an entity, but it was best practices not to allow adjustment at that level. And that's a huge change within HFM, because when you look at the way I present that same structure within HFM, it ends up being 3 boxes as opposed to, what is that, 3, 6, 9, 12 boxes. So it gives us the ability, when you look at that value dimension, because HFM assumes that if you have balances in a local currency and that local currency rolls up to a U.S. dollar parent and the application is set at U.S. dollars, it assumes you're going to do a translation. And it allows you to do that translation automatically. We no longer have to write default rules to perform translations. We only write the rules for the changes from what we want it to do automatically. Within this dimension, you also have the eliminations. And so what it allows us to do, you'll notice that I still included a box for area adjustments. Within this structure, what I can do is I can adjust each individual entity and maintain those adjustments separate from a reporting perspective, so that I can always see the before and after adjustments, and I no longer have to build alternate organizations to it. You know, in some cases you'd have 30 or 40 organizations for different reporting totals, and within HFM that really gets compacted down quite a bit when you look at how you can segment the data. Within the accounts, you know, a lot of these things haven't changed. For example, we still have attributes. We still have sub-accounts, but it used to be that you were limited to 2 sub-accounts. Now it can be 4+ levels of sub-accounts. And they don't have to be chained together like they used to be. You know, if you had a second-level sub-account, it had to be attached to a first-level sub-account. Now those dimensions can be independent, which gives us a lot of flexibility how we use them. A big difference is in enterprise you had to do foot down. And specifically you had to do formulas to tell it how to foot down your structure. It really made navigating from doing drill downs extremely difficult within reporting. Within HFM, it's a more familiar hierarchy or a roll-up flow that allows us to aggregate things without having to write rules for them. So subtotals are controlled by the hierarchy, and we don't have to maintain the logic. Intercompany accounts, because the intercompany partner is now a separate dimension, it allows you to have all dimensions available to it. Another big item is the usage of shared members within Enterprise. It was almost forbidden to use a shared member within HFM. Shared members are pretty common, especially as we have, for example, statutory roll-ups of accounts and GAAP roll-ups, IFRS roll-ups. It's very similar to have all of those account structures rolling in together and sharing base level numbers. Scenarios and categories, again, they're kind of the same concept. It's buckets of information, but it's within Enterprise, everything was kind of lumped into categories in terms of time periods. You had to have rollovers. You couldn't have a scenario called actual or a category called actual that was more than, for example, 2012. As you went to 2013, there was a rollover process and report maintenance process that just goes away within HFM. So there's a lot of efficiency with the way we maintain it from a year-to-year perspective. I have a great team of folks, and you know, I really rely on them a lot to help me kind of do these webinars. And with this webinar, what I really wanted to do is say, okay, what are the real issues in Enterprise that are solved by HFM, and what gives you the most benefits? And literally, I kind of regretted asking such an open-ended question because I got hundreds of points in reply, and I kind of boiled them down into some common themes. And there's a couple of times where the quotes kind of hit me because, you know, like I said, it's been a couple of years since I've worked with Enterprise, and I kind of forget how many things we had to work around to get Enterprise to work efficiently. And it kind of, you know, there's sometimes when you remember the old days, when you remember the old days weren't all that good. And some of these items are here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but things like security, being able to have real external authentication, being able to follow how security works and what items you need to secure and what items are available to secure, and the fact that it's auditable, where you don't have to kind of tap dance around your audit team when they ask you for logs and things like that. User support issues, my favorite one, and I quoted this directly from Jeff Pitts, error consolidation data load failed due to changes made by another user. I'd kind of forgotten how often that pops up when you have multiple people trying to do things at the same time. In HFM, it assumes concurrent connectivity. And so it will stack processes, and there's some rules around it, of course, but it's much, much easier to use. True thin client architecture eliminates the need for jury-rigging connectivity. Through the years, there was lots of different ways of doing it. You had sites. We'd spin off applications all the time. There would be this whole deal around year-end where you had to renew your applications that you might have spread out around the world, around the country. Citrix, remote desktop, all of those support needs go away because of that true client architecture. To give you a real-world story, we had a PC go bad on us that we were using at a client, and all they had to do was re-image it. We re-downloaded Smart View so we could use it in Excel, and in 20 minutes we were back up and running. So it really, IT desktop rollout really can be packaged now. There's not a whole lot of stuff that has to be put on that local workstation, if anything. Year-end rollovers go away. Scenarios now operate as a continuum, and no rollovers are required, including all the report maintenance effects. We still work with a lot of enterprise clients that are hanging around out there, and that's the biggest thing that they call us about every year. And in fact, we've been doing a lot of work in the last month or so about that, doing rollovers and making sure that people kind of understand all of the effects of rollovers. None of that has to happen now. Application structure, and probably the biggest thing there is just the comment that detail is no problem. Data stability, this is a direct quote, day and night, and it's true. We assume high availability when it comes to HFM, and the old scenario corruption problems that may happen during a backup or something like that just went away. As we wrap up, the path forward, when I think about the advice that I give to clients, the first thing that I always say is create a roadmap for consolidations and reporting. As you're moving to a new platform, you're not just migrating your application to a new platform. It gives you the ability to really rethink the way you do consolidations and reporting. And if you take advantage of that through a roadmap, everybody knows what the different steps are. Engage in change. All levels of the organization have stake in the change when it comes to this type of technology. People that may not have the capability to access it now because of licensing restrictions and costs and things like that, you may want to rethink that and make sure that financial information is being shared effectively in all levels of your organization. And then finally, choose the right team. Make sure that all of those stakeholders groups have representation so that you get a good full participation from the entire organization, not just your external reporting team, not just your planning team or your forecast team that happens to be using Enterprise. Make sure that everybody has a good solid stake in this project. And then externally, again, when I talk to clients about how they're choosing their integration partners, you need to choose people that really understand both HFM as well as Enterprise so that they can guide you through all of the differences, and really that's my team. The last page, just a naked advertisement for one of the things that we help clients do, both large and small, and I've given you the view of a small project that we did for a client, and that's a migration roadmap. We basically come in for a number of days and look at all aspects of your organizational reporting needs, both what you do currently within Enterprise, what you need to fix, and how you need to make changes to it. And the end result of that is three things. One is a roadmap. The second is a project plan that maps out for you at a pretty detailed level the tasks that are going to happen through the migration. And the final is a level of effort estimate that says, given what we know about the organization, given what we know about the resources you can commit to this project, what do you need to think about committing to the project? We do this a lot for clients. It's the kind of thing that clients ask us to do health checks all the time, and it really gives us an opportunity to help them kind of understand all of the opportunities. I'm going to turn it back over to Erica. That's it. I know that we probably have a lot of different questions that came in, but anything that you need to know, Erica can steer you to the right person within Emtec, and certainly I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much. If there's anything I can do for you, just let me know, and we'll go from there.
Okay, thanks, Russ. It's Len again. Again, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat section, and we'll definitely address them. As Russ said, if you would like to get more information regarding migration from Enterprise to HFM, please reach out to Erica Archer at email or her phone number, and she will get you in the right direction. We do have a question that came in. Russ, you can address it. The question is, can't I just take Enterprise and port it into HFM as is?
Thanks, Lynn. You can, actually. When you look at Enterprise, we can pretty correctly map most of the concepts. What really what really matters is understanding how you're implementing each of those concepts within enterprise. What I really get scared about is I've seen some firms offering migration utilities and things like that kind of, and even Oracle offers one that gives you some idea of how you would shoehorn an enterprise application into HFM. But doing things like adjustments and eliminations so much differently really means that you can streamline your organizations. And if you just look at porting it from one platform to another, you kind of lose that benefit of going from one to the other.
Okay, thank you, Russ. Again, if there's any other questions, please type them in. There are a couple more that ask Erica.
We do have a few questions, people asking if they can get a copy of the presentation, if this is recorded. Yes, we were going to be making the PowerPoint slides available in PDF form along with the recording. We'll be posting them on our website most likely by the end of today. If you'd like me to send you a link to the PDF or the recording, just send me an email. My contact information obviously is on this slide. So I will be sure to get that link to you.
Thank you, Erica. Any other questions out there? If it's a few more, give you another moment or two to ask any type of questions whatsoever. Here is a question, Russ, from a user. What is the time? Excuse me. What is the time frame for an implementation from HP to HFM?
Thanks, Lynn. You know, we've done, it kind of depends on that scope again. I'll give you the consultant answer of it depends. We've done implementations that were as short as 10 weeks and some that were as long as a year. And often what's driving that is other changes within the organizations. Perhaps they had multiple enterprise applications spread out around the world, and they wanted to bring it into one unified application. We see that a lot because now with the new platform, it really gives you the ability to house a lot more information because we can support, you know, we've got some clients that have up to 200-300 users accessing the implementation or accessing the application simultaneously. So it really reduces the need to have all of those different applications floating around in our organization. And those implementations have a tendency to take longer. But I like to give clients kind of that it depends. You know, I can scope out pretty well what the application build and what the rollout's going to look like, and kind of the wild card in each implementation is going to be how much data you're trying to validate and transfer over to the new application.
Okay, thank you, Russ. Here's another question. We are a mid-sized company. How does HFM bring value if we are just a smaller mid-sized firm?
Yeah, I get that question sometimes. Enterprise was really useful in what Hyperion and Oracle kind of termed the mid-market. And even in mid-sized firms, what you'll find yourself doing within enterprise is working around things a lot. And as you go forward, if you do have a platform change, such as, you know, upgrading to Windows 7 or Internet Explorer 9 or a server platform change, it's going to continue to get harder and harder to support an aging platform such as enterprise. But the other benefits are really a reduction in the amount of administrative tasks that you have. A lot of the things that you used to have to plan to do, such as rollovers, report maintenance around year-end, different category maintenance items to construct forecast categories. A lot of that goes away through the application of just, you know, the continuum of scenarios and the application of rules that can drive those blended scenarios. So the other benefit is really from an analysis standpoint. You probably 60-65% of the activities that go on with an organization have to do with reconciliation. And a lot of that reconciliation is because you don't have the level of detail within Enterprise that you need. A lot of that detail can now be piped into HFM, so there's less summary and there's more ability to do really effective ad hoc analysis and reconciliation automatically.
Okay, thank you. There is another question, and this is, we are also a mid-sized company. However, we do have complex company ownerships that we are doing outside of Enterprise. Can we do these in HFM?
Absolutely. Within HFM, you kind of have, within Enterprise, let me sort of contrast and compare how you would do that within Enterprise. Within Enterprise, you had the ability to kind of control how information rolled from one to the other. But when it came to doing things like equity pickup, intercompany transaction management, it was extremely difficult to do that. Because we're doing that in HFM in different dimensions from the entity dimension, it gives us the ability to apply a lot more complexity to it. That is proportion, contribution, as well as alternate ownerships. And it's kind of, a lot of times you'll hear it more of a statutory compliance as a legal entity view, and then external reporting is the real view. And what you'll see is a lot of complex ownerships, and especially where it deals with the equity pickup, HFM does that much more effectively. The second piece of that is our ability to write custom consolidation rules is very much expanded. So we've actually helped clients take that functionality that they might be doing in Excel and bring it back into HFM so it happens automatically. That's a great question. Yeah.
Thank you, Russ. And looks like we have one more question here. Is, we use Hyperion reports extensively. Do we need to rewrite every single report if we move to HFM?
The real answer is yes. It is a different reporting platform. Now, what I'll kind of caution you is the number of reports that you're going to have to rewrite is going to be diminished. A lot of the reports that you used for just ad hoc reporting, and it was kind of the canned report set that we always delivered to you right when we did your design. Those ad hoc reports, which is this by this by this, a lot of that functionality has been switched to SmartView because of the really, really strong ad hoc reporting capability. But also within Financial Reporting Studio, we have the ability to more effectively use prompting and effectively use the different object bases so that the number of reports should be really reduced.
Okay, thank you. We actually have one more. I know we're a little bit, we're at the 1 hour mark, but we will stay over as long as questions keep coming in. And this question is, we present to the board and various executive committees. We typically will, let me read this, take data, we'll bring data into Excel via retrieve, and then rekey into PowerPoint and or Word documents. Does that get eliminated with moving to HFM?
It does. Within SmartView, we provide kind of 4 connections, and you know, of course, they provide it to all of the Office suite, but the 4 that are often used, of course, is Excel. The next is PowerPoint, and the ability to embed links directly into the database from your PowerPoint. A lot of times we used to do links from PowerPoint into Excel, but it was kind of kludgy, and it ended up being just cleaner to retype it, just like you're doing. But with the automatic connections that SmartView provides to both PowerPoint and Word, it makes it a lot easier. Now, the final part of that is also Outlook, so that as you're doing things, you can actually trigger Outlook notifications and things like that. So it's an extremely strong. It is an add-in to Excel, but it's programmed exactly for the Excel usage, so it's a little less kludgy than you'd find within Enterprise as well.
Okay. It looks like that might. I'm going to give everyone just a moment or two to type in any more questions. If not, it looks like that may be it. And it does look like that is the end of the questions that we have at this point. So again, folks, if you're really seriously considering moving from Enterprise to HFM, take advantage of the functionality, minimize risk by not moving, knowing that Enterprise is going on sustained support. Please reach out to us, contact Erica, and she will make sure that we get in contact, get the right people in contact with you. If you have any other questions, you can, again, funnel those questions to Erica as well. We, again, thank you for your time this morning. We appreciate your listening, and hopefully this has been of value to you as you begin the process of considering moving from Enterprise to Hyperion Financial Management. And with that, thank you all, and have a great day.